Buckle up, everyone, because today we're taking a deep dive into the future. You guys sent in some fascinating research that suggests we're on the brink of some massive shifts. Think society, technology, maybe even revolutions on multiple fronts.
And what's really got my attention is this idea that these shifts, they might not be random, The research points to these patterns like historical cycles converging with groundbreaking tech. It could be a perfect storm for the U.S., a mix of instability and huge opportunity.
So hold on, you're saying the future isn't just some chaotic free-for-all, there's some kind of order to this madness.
That's exactly it. One source highlights the work of Friedman. He's a geopolitical forecaster, really interesting guy. And he argues that U.S. history is shaped by these two overlapping cycles. One's a 50-year socioeconomic cycle, and the other is an 80-year institutional one.
Whoa. Cycles. Can you break that down a bit?
Sure. Think about it. 50 years ago, the world was a completely different place. No internet as we know it. Computers were these giant, clunky things. Totally different global power dynamics.
Crazy, right? Totally. Okay, so how do these cycles actually play out? What makes them pick?
Well, the 50-year cycle is all about the economy. Friedman says it's connected to industries rising and falling. Like every half century or so, we see these big shakeups in how our economy works.
Okay, I'm starting to see where you're going with this. So,
Yeah.
are we due for one of those major economic shifts soon?
Well, that's what Friedman would say. Think about the shift from that post-World War II manufacturing boom to, well, everything that came after the service economy, the rise of finance in the late 20th century.
Right. And the 80-year cycle, you said.
Yeah, that one's about power structures, how we govern ourselves. So Friedman's suggesting that every 4 generations or so, there's this big reshuffling of power, like between the federal government and states, even within the branches of government.
Okay, this is getting really interesting. So both these cycles are kind of converging right now in the 2020s. Could that explain some of the crazy stuff we're seeing in politics and society?
It's definitely a theory worth considering. Friedman says these convergences, they often cause instability because the old systems, they just can't keep up with the new realities.
Makes sense. But it also sounds like it could create some serious opportunities, right?
Absolutely. Friedman argues that these times of upheaval, they can pave the way for a whole new style of leadership people who can navigate uncharted territory and, maybe even bring a fractured society back together.
A new kind of leader for a new era. I like it. But on top of all this cyclical stuff, we've got this explosion of new technologies happening right now. AI, gene editing, the metaverse. Are you saying these two things are connected?
That's where things get really fascinating. The research introduces us to the work of Seba and Cathie Wood. Have you heard of them?
Yeah, I'm familiar with their work.
Seba is all about what he calls clean disruption. He's saying 4 key areas are going to completely reshape industries. We're not talking decades here, we're talking years.
Wow, years. Okay, I'm all ears. Hit me with these 4 areas.
Solar power and batteries, of course. Then there's autonomous electric vehicles, precision fermentation, lab-grown stuff. Like those burgers, imagine that for all kinds of food.
Lab-grown lattes. Sign me up.
Right. And then there's artificial intelligence. It's all happening so fast.
Hold on. I can already see the headlines. Robots taking our jobs. AI run amok. How do we manage all this change without leaving people in the dust?
Big questions, no doubt. And that's exactly why understanding these trends is so crucial. Seba, he actually compares the speed of this to when, well, you remember when the car replaced horses, right? Early 20th century. Yeah. Massive disruption, fundamental shift. And then there's Cathie Wood. She's focused on what she calls convergent technologies. The idea is that these innovations, they aren't just happening in a vacuum. They're feeding off each other, amplifying each other's impact.
Convergent technologies. I like that.
Yeah.
But can you give us an example? What does that look like in real life?
Imagine AI analyzing your genomic data to create personalized medicine and then using robotics to actually manufacture those treatments.
Wow.
Right.
Whoa. Okay, so we've got these historical cycles potentially pointing towards a period of major upheaval, and then we have this wave of tech advancements that could disrupt pretty much everything. So where does leadership fit into all of this? Do we even have the right kind of leaders to handle this?
That's the big question, isn't it? And yeah, the sources seem to suggest that we do need a new kind of leader, someone who's, well, less about reacting to change and more about anticipating it, even harnessing it.
So less putting out fires and more shaping the future. But what would that even look like in practice?
Right. Well, the research outlines 4 key traits of what it calls a transformational leader. First up, they got to be visionaries, able to see the potential in these emerging technologies and figure out how to use them to actually solve problems.
Okay, that makes sense. So visionary, check. What else?
But they also need to be super adaptable, like governing in a way that's flexible. It's got to be responsive to this crazy pace of change, right? We can't be stuck in the old ways of thinking.
Totally. So visionary, adaptable, what's next?
Collaboration. And I mean big time collaboration, national and global. These challenges, they're not respecting borders, are they? Climate change, AI, you name it.
Right. No country's an island these days.
Exactly. And finally, these leaders, they gotta be willing to experiment, try new things, not be afraid to fail, like really embrace that kind of move fast and break things mentality, but in a responsible way, of course.
Wow. So this new kind of leader, it sounds like they need to be like a unicorn. Are we even seeing any examples of this kind of leadership emerging today?
Well, it's early days, but the sources do point to some interesting stuff. Think about how much more collaboration we're seeing between governments and private companies these days, especially in space.
True. SpaceX, Blue Origin, all that.
Exactly. And the growing push for renewables, too. Even the early talks around global AI regulation, that's huge.
Yeah, that's a big one. Okay, so while the future's always a bit of a mystery, it sounds like there's real potential for positive change amidst all this disruption. But I gotta say, it's still hard to wrap my head around what this future might actually look like. It all feels so abstract.
I get it. And that's why this next source is so interesting. Remember that short story about Ava Cho in 2035? It gives us a peek into this world where a lot of the technologies we're just starting to grapple with, they're just everyday life for her.
Oh yeah, Ava Cho. What was she doing again? Zipping around in a flying car or something?
Close.
No.
She's sipping a lab-grown latte, hopping into driverless pods, working in a city powered by wind and solar. It's a pretty vivid picture, right?
It is. And it's not just the tech that's different. It's like a whole different mindset. Remember how her grandmother was talking about all the fear and uncertainty back in the 2020s? But for Ava, those fears seem to have faded. And there's this sense of optimism, this spirit of collaboration. It's really striking.
I think it says a lot about the impact leadership can have. In Ava's world, those early fears about AI taking over or gene editing going wrong, they seem to have been addressed. Not by resisting change, but by shaping it.
And in Ava's time, the U.S. is led by this President Ortega, right? He seems like a prime example of this new breed of leader we're talking about.
Yeah.
What were those fireside streams of his?
Oh, yeah. It's like a 21st century version of those old fireside chats, but totally tech-driven. Instead of radio, it's all about connecting with citizens directly through, I don't know, live streams, virtual town halls, whatever.
Right. It's a pretty cool example of how governance might adapt to keep pace with tech. And then there was that detail about the global gene editing treaty. That suggests that we can't just go it alone with these huge tech advancements, right? We need global cooperation to deal with the ethical and societal implications.
Absolutely. We're all in this together, whether we like it or not.
But honestly, do you think that kind of global cooperation is even possible given, well, all the division and polarization we see today?
It's definitely a challenge, no question. But, Ava's story, it does offer a glimmer of hope. It suggests that maybe realizing these challenges need collective solutions could actually lead to a shift in how we approach geopolitics.
So you're saying that instead of all the old power struggles and everyone just looking out for themselves?
That maybe this need to address these shared concerns, existential threats like climate change, maybe that could push us towards a more collaborative approach.
It's a hopeful thought for sure. But let's bring this back down to earth for a minute. I mean, it's easy to get swept up in all these big ideas, but how does this actually connect to our lives right now?
That's the key question, right? What role do we play in all of this? And remember, you're the one who sent in this research. You're already engaged with these ideas. So as we've been talking, what's been resonating with you?
I mean, I'm definitely feeling a sense of urgency, like we need to start preparing for these changes now. But honestly, yeah, it can feel a little overwhelming too, right? All this talk about rapid change and disruption.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot to process. But here's the thing. Understanding these trends, it gives us power. Knowledge is power, like they say.
Right. So by recognizing these historical cycles and these tech forces that are already in motion, it means we can make better choices in our own lives and how we engage with the world.
Exactly. Like if you know a storm's coming, you can get ready for it, right? You can batten down the hatches, stock up on supplies, help your neighbors get prepared.
I like that analogy. So understanding these trends, it's like we can be proactive instead of just reacting to whatever comes our way.
Exactly. We can start thinking about how to adapt, how to position ourselves to thrive in this new world, and how to contribute to creating the kind of future we want to see. Because the future, it's not something that just happens to us, is it? It's something we build.
It's like we're all architects, in a way, designing the world we want to live in. And it all comes back to leadership, doesn't it? The choices leaders make today, they have this ripple effect for generations to come. But here's the thing I keep coming back to leadership. It's not just for, people with fancy titles or positions of authority.
Right. It's a choice we can all make, no matter where we are in life. So listener, as you're going about your day, as you face those everyday challenges and opportunities, just ask yourself, what kind of leader do I want to be?
What kind of leader do I want to be?
Yeah, think about it. What does it mean to be a transformational leader in your family, in your work, in your community? Maybe it means being more open to new ideas or finding ways to work together more effectively.
Or maybe it's about embracing those four traits we talked about: vision, adaptability, collaboration, and experimentation.
Or maybe it's something completely different, something totally unique to you and your passions. The point is, leadership is an opportunity, a choice we can all make to shape the future.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the future, let's remember the future isn't set in stone. It's shaped by the choices we make, the actions we take, and the leadership we embody every single day.
We hope this deep dive has sparked some ideas and maybe even some inspiration for you as you navigate these, well, let's be honest, pretty exciting and challenging times.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Stay curious, stay engaged, and most importantly, keep leading.